Okay.
Okay, so just watched the video, the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, 1996. There's guns. So that's the number one thing. We understand that this is not during Shakespeare's time. There's no tights. Well, there's no tights. There's no, people riding on horseback, and there's no swords. What are the swords?
Guns.
They're guns. All right. So we've got the 9mm sword, the sword. What was it? The sword 9mm edition. Okay. So we understand that our director is playing a little fast and loose with Shakespeare right now, but we did meet some characters. Okay, and they're the same characters that you're going to meet when we start reading Romeo and Juliet. But again, I like to watch it because you really get a good idea of what Shakespeare intended for these characters to be like. So can I have somebody read on defining characterization, read where it says characterization. Someone read that for me, Michaela. Thank you.
Characterization is the process by which the writer reveals the personality of the character. Characterization is revealed through direct characterization and indirect characterization.
Thank you very much. Okay, so direct characterization is really simple. This is when the writer or the poet or the author tells you directly what this character is like. Okay, if I was going to directly characterize Corinne, okay, I might tell you that Corinne is a beautiful and a talented young lady who gets really sleepy when she comes to my class because she doesn't go to sleep at night, and I'm always having to stop her from yawning and making sure that she stays present. Okay, you don't have to infer anything. I told you that Corinne is beautiful and she's smart and she's always sleepy and she needs to get more sleep and she's always yawning when she comes to my class. Okay, no question. No question. All right. Now, indirect characterization is where we get a little complicated. Okay, because indirect characterization means what? If direct means I'm telling you directly, then what does indirect mean?
You're not telling directly.
You're inferring.
You have to infer. You're going to have to do some inference, which means that there's some clues and some hints that you're going to have to rely on. So can I get someone to read for me the definition of indirect? Go ahead, Anthony. Thank you.
Indirect characterization shows things that reveal the personality of a character. There are 5 different methods of indirect characterization.
Okay, excellent. So on the handout that I gave you that says Tybalt on one side and Benvolio on the other, I have those 5 characteristics listed. Now, if you notice that the characteristics for indirect characterization are an acronym, and the acronym is STEAL, S-T-E-A-L. So what's the first? What's the S? Speech. Okay, so what does the character say? How does the character speak? Okay, what does that reveal to you about who the character is? What's the T?
Thoughts.
All right, what is revealed through the character's private thoughts and feelings? What can you tell about this character when they're having sort of an intimate moment by him or herself? Like when we get to the balcony scene in Romeo and Juliet in Act 2, and Juliet is, on her balcony and she's waxing poetic about this guy that she just met and known for 7 minutes and how much she loves him. All right, what does that reveal about, not necessarily her feelings about Romeo, but who she is as a person? Okay? What's the E?
Effect on others toward the character.
Excellent. What is revealed through the character's effect on other people? How do other characters feel or behave in reaction to the character? So if a character walks on stage, and everybody goes, hey. Okay, what does that mean? What does that reveal to us about who that character is? They're what? Okay, kind of shy, kind of nervous, or they don't like him, like, ew. Hey girl, hey. Okay, all right. So you can tell how that person is received by how other people react to them, their effect on other people when they walk in the room. And what's the A? Actions, what they do. And we're going to get to that S, and we're going to start with Tybalt. Because Tybalt has a whole lot of actions. I don't know if you noticed him jumping down on his knees and kissing the gun before he fired it. That means something. All right, and what's the L?
Looks.
All right, what does the character look like, and how does the character dress? And that's really important, and again, that's why I like to show the video, because you can't really get a good feel for how the characters are dressed in a play unless you're watching it. Okay? So that is the way that you indirectly characterize a character. So, now, let's look at our characters. Benvolio. And who is Benvolio? What is his role? What does he do? Go ahead.
He's Romeo's cousin.
He's Romeo's cousin. All right, good. All right, and who is good Tybalt? Juliet's cousin. All right, so here we have. Okay, so here we have family. All right, so that's number one. Now, the play is called what?
Romeo and Juliet.
Okay. Have Romeo and Juliet even appeared yet?
No.
No. And actually, Romeo doesn't appear until the end of Act 1. The end of Act 1, Scene 1. And Juliet doesn't appear until the end of Act 1. So we're not even dealing with Romeo and Juliet yet. We're just dealing with their family members. Okay, so let's look at Tybalt first, because Tybalt is fun. All right, using, and you can copy these down on your handout, using the Steele method. S stands for speech. What does Tybalt's speech reveal about him? Go ahead, again.
Well, he speaks somewhat proper, but he has a little bit more of a Hispanic accent.
He does. And that's because, anybody familiar with John Leguizamo? John Leguizamo plays if you ever seen Ice Age? The little thing that keeps, the squirrel that keeps looking for trying to get the nut?
Yeah.
That's him?
No, actually that's not John Leguizamo. He's the, no, he is. That is he sees, is he the squirrel? No, he's the sloth. He's the sloth with the lisp. He's the sloth with the lisp. So the fact that, and what we'll get into when we get into the movie analysis about why the director chose John Leguizamo. But he has very proper speech as well. He should, especially when we're talking about Shakespeare. Now, when it comes to speech, in Shakespeare was very, very particular about the speech that was used for his characters. Okay, because during Elizabethan time and during Shakespeare's time, what pronouns you use, the thines and the thous, depended upon what your status was. Okay? If you were an upper level status, you spoke differently than if you were a lower level status. Let me give you an example in real life. I am from Boston, Massachusetts, where we don't pronounce our R's and we pronounce them as AH's. So, park your car at Harvard Yard, where I'm from, sounds like park your car at Harvard Yard. Right? So the AR's and the AH's are replaced. Now, people think, when they find out from Boston, they say, oh, you don't have a Boston accent. That is because that AH, that Harvard, that Yard, that Ka, is a socioeconomic. Okay? People who are from working class neighborhoods, that's the way they speak. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, named after my hometown. Thank you very much. And so we don't speak that way. Same way in Shakespeare. Okay, you'll see the differences when you meet. A perfect example: when the Montague boys and they were in the car and they were acting crazy, they spoke differently than Benvolio and than Tybalt, Benvolio and Tybalt, and that's because they're not part of the family; they're the servants. Okay, all right, good. What else? Anything else about his speech? Yes.
He sounded kind of arrogant.
There is an arrogance about.
He sounded kind of evil.
He sounded what?
Evil.
Kind of evil.
Serious.
Arrogant. Serious. Good. Evil.
Like he the man.
Or like
He has a
Sounded like
mastermind.
Doc Holliday.
He does sound like
And
Doc
then when
Holliday.
he do the gun thing,
Right, with the guns and he's flipping them around. But who used a vocabulary word? You better use a vocabulary word. Okay, good. I'm gonna add. All right, he has a belligerent tone. Everything about him, when he approaches, lets you know that there's something different about Tybalt. Okay, we're going to come back to belligerent in a minute. Thoughts. We didn't really have any opportunity to kind of see his thoughts, but what do you think Tybalt might have been thinking while he was in the midst of this brawl? Go ahead, Corinne.
Trying to kill the monkeys.
Trying to kill the monkeys. All right, so his thoughts, even though we were not, privy to what was going on inside his head, his actions kind of gave us an indication of what he might be thinking. And number one is kill Montagues. Okay? And that's evidenced by what? How do we know that? He tried to shoot them the way he looked at them. Go ahead.
I noticed too that he kind of shot the gas pump, and I think he knew that he shot it.
And he dropped a cigarette. He dropped a little cigarette thingy on purpose too.
Good. Okay, so and we're going to get to actions in a minute, but his actions were calculated. He's not dumb. Okay, he's not an unintelligent person. He is very crafty, and he is very calculating. Kind of reminds me of another protagonist that we studied earlier in first semester. Okay, he's a tactician. He is. He's tactical. Okay, but he's also some other stuff. We're going to get to that in a minute. Okay, effect on others toward the character. So let's broaden this just a little bit, because Tybalt arrived with his boys. Tybalt arrived with the Capulet boys.
It was only like one of them.
Actually, there were
Three.
three. There were three. What was Tybalt's effect? Better yet, what were the Capulet boys' effect on Gregor and Samson? That's who the crazy ones that were in the car while Benvolio was in the bathroom. What was their effect on them? Go ahead.
They scared him.
They got scared. Good. All right. So the Montague boys, they got scared. They were like, "Oh shoot!" And what were they doing? And if you didn't understand it, that's fine. But if you could tell from their actions, what were they doing before the Capulet boy showed up?
Talking about that nun.
Okay, they were playing around and what? They were doing some indie. They were wilding out. They were wilding out. And Benvolio says the quarrel is between our masters. What's Benvolio say? What does he mean when he says that? Go ahead.
The fight's not between me.
The fight's not between us. The fight's between our masters. And they're like, yeah, and us, they're men. So yeah, we part of the fight too. So they're all hyped with it. They're all hyped with it. And then Tybalt and the Capulets show up, and all of a sudden they're looking around, and the guy goes, "Boo!" And they go, "Oh," and he starts laughing at him. Okay, so they got scared. When Benvolio sees Tybalt, what's his reaction? What is Tybalt's effect on Benvolio when Benvolio finally comes back into the scene?
He gets that scared face. He gets that surprised face.
Okay, so he has a surprise face. What else? Okay, ready to battle. Because if you notice Benvolio when he arrives, he kind of sees Tybalt. The guys are getting ready to fight. The peons, the servants are getting ready to fight, and Benvolio shows up. He's like, wait, hey. Put up your guns. You don't know what you're doing. This is about to be bad. Then out of the corner of his eye, he sees Tybalt, and he kind of steadies himself like that's that. Oh shoot, there's Tybalt. Don't know it. Let me. Something's about to go down, but let me try to quell this. Let me try to quell this.
They used it too.
They did use it. See, you guys are learning stuff. I teach you good stuff. All right, go ahead.
When you said that he was trying to calm down, coincidentally, he had a gun in his hand.
Which is what Tybalt says, isn't it? And we saw this in our other video. He's just like, what? Drawn? Your gun is drawn and you talk of peace? Right. Benvolio had a gun in his hand. So we can infer what?
He wanted to fight.
About to pow. There's some stuff's about to go down. Yes, go ahead.
With no ammunition.
Well, that's Tybalt. When Tybalt says, Benvolio, look upon my death, and he's very dramatic with it. Did you see him? He's very dramatic. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, how can he be like, you can't talk about peace when you have a gun in your hand? Like, for you to tell him that he's not, peaceful, if you're up there trying to be violent and everything. Or his mindset, even if he didn't have a gun in his hand, he would be like, peace isn't an option anyway.
And that's where we go back to the thought, and you're absolutely right. Even if he didn't have a gun in his hand, even if he had a bat, if he had a tack, he could throw tacks at him. He'd be doing something, because I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and you. So it doesn't matter. He could have had some tissue, and there would have been a tissue fight. He was gonna start a fight, okay? Because that's what Tibble does. Okay. So let's do A and L together because the bell's getting ready to ring, and I want to at least get to this. We'll do a little bit of Benvolio and the other characters tomorrow before we start reading. His actions and his looks. Let's jump to looks. Go ahead.
He looked like when he was born in Greece.
Okay, so he looked like
With the hair.
He looked like he was from Jersey.
He looked like what?
He was from Jersey.
From Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay, so he looks like he would have been perfectly fine on Jersey Shore.
Yes.
He looks very sophisticated.
Like,
Okay, he looks very sophisticated. Now, is it sophisticated?
He looks like he's trying to be.
Kind of looks like
they're like
Okay, he looks like what? Say that again.
He's more in like a stuck-up kind of way.
He in more of a stuck-up kind of way. He's very. The word is pretentious. Okay, good job today, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Be ready to read tomorrow. I promise I won't make you a girl.
Stop.